Cavan 117, me 218. Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. How are we all? How are we all doing? Massive win for Meath, and this is the match reaction. This is the breakdown after an incredible game of Gaelic football in Division 2. Extraordinary game of the weekend, game of the year, albeit we're early days in the year, but this was brilliant. This had absolutely everything, in my opinion, from both teams. And fair play to both teams for delivering an absolute spectacle of Gaelic football, in my opinion. Look, congratulations to Meath, first of all, for getting over the line, for getting the victory, and for getting the points on the board. But look, from a Cavan perspective, I thought they did themselves proud, in my opinion, in terms of how they played today. And look, I backed Cavan to get relegated at the start of the season. I've seen a bit of highlights versus Cork, but haven't watched them in this game. You know, look, Division 2 is going to be very, very hard. Cavan still have to play Derry, still have to play Tyrone. But, you know, I think Cavan, on the basis of the last two performances, you would say, if they can play like that again in the next couple of games, I'm actually not too sure who they play next. Relegation, I think they'll be fine, to be honest with you. But it is that question of who does end up in there. And when you look at Kildare, who start very strongly as well, as an example, Louth have been very consistent in this division, albeit they had a bad result today. But look, focusing in on this game, first of all, it was a brilliant game. Absolutely brilliant. Some of the shoot and some of the play from both teams was absolutely next level. That last 10 minutes, it felt championship-esque, in my opinion, in terms of there being so much on the line. And this is nearly why I prefer Division 2. Like obviously, as a Dublin fan, I would have preferred to have seen Dublin Mayo. Well, actually, given how that game went, probably not, to be honest. But that's besides the point. Having games of Division 2, I think we need to get more Division 2 games on TV, because, like, even with Derry Tyrone a little bit last night as well, from what I've seen of it, so much on the line going into the closing stages because of the fact that teams are fighting for Sam Maguire places. Teams are fighting to get up into Division 1. There's a lot more jeopardy, I think, in Division 2 than there is in Division 1, let's say, for example. And teams want to prove themselves and everything else. And the last 10 minutes was absolutely chaotic, from Cavan, you know, from Meath leading by a point to the handling error by Donald Keoghan, then being picked up by Cavan McGovern, who or by Grove McKernan originally, who pops the ball over. Cavan McGovern then gets one a couple of minutes late, and you're thinking Cavan are about to pull off a massive win here. But up steps Jack Flynn, who's arguably been the player of the league so far. It was actually his only score of the game, coincidentally, but he was everywhere again for me today. But he gets that 2-pointer, and you know what? There are so many teams, in my opinion, up and down the country that do not take that chance on, that get into that position, recycle the ball. You know, you're a point down. There's so many teams. I've seen it with my own team, Dublin. I've seen it with so many other teams that just do not take that chance on. And Jack Flynn does, and he absolutely nails it. And for me, that's what makes Meath such a dangerous prospect, I think, going into the summer as well, because, you know, like we know the ability that they have in terms of 2-pointers. Like, there's so many of them, from Jordan Morris to Rory Kinsella to Matthew Costello. And look, as a Dublin fan, you know, you never want to give me too much credit, but you have to be honest, because they, over the last 12 months, they've been outstanding, and you have to call it when you see it. And this is another massive win that they've managed to pull off. And when you think about it, in the last year, they beat Kerry for the first time in 20 years. They beat Dublin for the first time since 2010. They beat Galway for the first time in a long time as well. I don't know the figure on that. And now they've won, I believe, in Breffni Park for the first time since the 1960s. So it's some going. They've showed some amount of bottle here as well. You feel like teams of the past would have wilted towards the end of that game, but they found it within themselves to turn it around. And massive credit, I think, has to go to Robbie Brennan as well, because, you know, Meath are one of them teams that if the 2-pointer opportunity presents itself, they go for it, regardless of what the scenario is in the game, and regardless of of other circumstances and everything else. And I feel like that's how Gaelic football's going now, you know, and they do seem a little bit ahead of the curve in comparison to some other counties in regards to that. But incredible game. Look, speaking about the opening kind of stages, opening 10 minutes was cagey enough, to be fair. And it did take a little bit of a while for this game to kind of settle down. But yeah, Rory Kinsella with a big goal that opened up a bit of a lead for Meath. And it was impressive enough, because every time it looked like Meath were going to pull away in this game, or, you know, sort of dominate this game and win it quite comfortably. Cavan would keep on coming back, and having Gerald McKernan back in the side as well. He scored a brilliant 2-pointer from a free just on the 20-minute mark. And Cavan worked themselves back into it. They get a goal from Peter Corrigan. Brilliant finish. And it was back and forth, and you didn't really know what way it was going to go at times in the second half. And you feel like this could have really went either way, like with Cavan obviously coming back into it. Every time Meath would pull away a lead, and Cavan would come back. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant game of football. Jared Smith as well was very good. Oisin Brady. And look, considering Cavan are without Paddy Lynch as well, huge from their perspective to have produced this type of performance. Darren McVeety as well with two from centre back. And actually, as a matter of fact, we'll go through the scores. That's the wrong one. There we go. So we'll go through the scores here before we take a look at some of the comments there. So in terms of Meath scores, you'll see there Jordan Morris with 1-4. He was brilliant as well, wasn't he? In a obviously a close game for him. Obviously plays in the Cavan Club Championship and everything else. I'm actually not too sure about the backstory of Jordan Morris in terms of is he from Cavan and he plays for Meath? I'd love for someone to actually educate me on that, to be fair. But yeah, Matthew Costello with 2 points, Connor Duke with a point, Owen Frayne with a score there as well, Jack Flynn with 2, Matthew Costello with 2 as well. Like, just they have a lot of options, don't they, in terms of attack. And they did even have James Conlon, who came off the bench and scored 3 as well. So he was very impressive. In terms of the Cavan scores, then, as you'll see there, Gerald McKernan with 9, Oisin Brady, who was very impressive, scored 4 points. Cormac O'Reilly with a point as well. Peter Corrigan with the goal. Like, there is a few new faces in that Cavan team that I wouldn't be familiar with from recent seasons. Maybe Cavan fans might disagree, but so look, I think it's positive. And look, Dermot McCabe, he got a lot of criticism when the appointment came from Cavan supporters. And look, maybe that was one of the reasons that led me to push towards saying that they would get relegated. I've looked at this performance and I've watched highlights of the game versus Cork, and I'm kind of thinking they look pretty good. And maybe that's one when we do the reaction video in a couple of months' time that we're looking at and thinking, how on earth did I say that? Look, they haven't won a game. They do have 2 defeats, so they will need to turn it around and start getting wins on the board at some point. But they delivered some good kind of performances in regards to that. Going through a few comments here, Gaelic Guys says, so disappointing for Cavan to lose 2 games where they were really competitive despite being underdogs. Yeah, like they conceded a late 2-pointer, didn't they, against Cork last week? A lot of games last year as well where Westmeath lost with late points. It was kind of a very similar scenario probably with Westmeath last season in Division 2, wasn't it? So there we go. Darrell Wilson says here, I'm a huge Armagh fan. We didn't do good against Galway. We need to win our remaining home matches versus Donegal and Kerry. Maybe beat Dublin and Croke Park for the second year in a row. Look, I think Armagh will be. I don't think Armagh will have anything to worry about there, in my opinion. Meath is a brilliant team. So is Cavan. Meath have brilliant players like Sean Rafferty and others. Yeah, they've got a lot of very good players. They're still a young team and everything else, and they're not the finished article yet. You would say that, but they've dug this out, and especially these type of games where games are in the melting pot and everything else, and there's pressure and expectation on this Meath team. If Meath had a loss today, maybe some people would have been questioning them and saying, are they as good as what some people like myself have been saying as an example? But they dug it out, and they found a way to win the game. And look, they're in a healthy position. Them and Cork sit top of Division 2 with 4 points. And they're in a good position. They've beaten Derry, so they have the head-to-head on them. 3-point gap to Tyrone, albeit early days. So they'll be very happy, I think, in regards to that. And even with the likes of Owen Frayne and a few other players who have been playing Sigerson, so probably not in their absolute best form, you would say, as of now, especially with that competition ongoing. But yeah, a cracking game of Gaelic football, absolutely brilliant, to be fair. Both giving it everything, some 2-pointers, the scores. Meath were outstanding, I felt, in terms of kickouts and everything else that went with it. But yeah, look, do let me know your thoughts, your opinions in the comments down below. Let me know what you think in regards to this match. Who was your man of the match? I think for me, I probably would go with Jordan Morris, who was outstanding. To be fair, with 1-4, but I do think Roe McKernan was very good from a Cavan perspective, especially on kickouts as well. He won a lot of ball in regards to that. As did Brian Menton for Meath. He was very good in regards to that as well. But yeah, do let me know your thoughts, your opinions. Hit the like button and subscribe. We will be back live at 8 p.m. for the football review show. I won't be on that show, unfortunately, but the likes of Matthew and a few of the other lads will be on there. So make sure to tune in for that. Be reviewing the football games, the hurling games. I am going to make another video tomorrow discussing Dublin as well, because I haven't really made much video content on Dublin football as of yet, probably because they haven't been on TV. But look, it is what it is. So yeah, we'll be back tomorrow in regards to that, and I'll speak to you all later.